It's time for Tastemaker Talk, the podcast for food creators who want to level up their business and make an impact in the creator economy. I'm Abbey Rodriguez.
And I'm Chandace Probst. We're your hosts and fellow food content creators here to dive deep into the trends, tools, and topics shaping the industry around us. There's so much to uncover, so let's talk about it. Tastemaker Talk.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited about today's episode because we get to chat with the incredible Sam Kass. We're talking food systems and the real cultural influence of creators. So Sam, welcome. As a chef in high-end restaurants and later in the home of then Senator Barack and Michelle Obama, Sam Kass read a lot about how eating organic and buying local was the key to remaking a food system otherwise built on climate change causing petroleum. But when he followed the Obamas into the White House, he realized something. While it's easy to identify the problems in our spoiled food system, fixing it is not as simple as getting your eggs from the farmer's market. In his recent book, The Last Supper, Sam breaks down how changing the way we eat can help fix the climate crisis, from rethinking daily habits to investing in new technology. So welcome, Sam.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so there is, I feel like, a very particular question that I've been thinking about. So I read The Last Supper in the last couple months and had Daphne read it. And so I would love to hear what your take and your general argument for The Last Supper is, because I'm not going to try to use your words to say what you have to say about it. But the way I read it was you're talking a lot about the influencers of food system change, talking about culture and technology was my big takeaway. And that piece, I think, that was missing from my perspective of these cultural tastemakers was the creator. So that is the angle that I want to get into today, talking about this massive platform that creators have to be purveyors of change. But tell us about The Last Supper in your own words and why you do the work you do.
It's interesting. So The Last Supper actually comes from a dinner I did, or now a series of dinners that I have done and continue to do. The first one that I did was in Paris around COP21, where they were doing the big climate accords.
Yep.
And at the time, food and agriculture wasn't being discussed in that context at all. It just wasn't a part of the dialogue. And part of it was because of, the culture of those policies. It was just a focus on energy. But our culture had not expressed its, through food, the role that food needed to play in any kind of solution set. And so it was an attempt to try to raise awareness and use our food to tell a story and to try to connect these issues with people in an emotional way. So the dinner is actually all the ingredients that, at the time, it was that our kids and our grandkids won't have because of climate. So it's things we love: coffee, wine, chocolate, shellfish, crustaceans, stone fruit like peaches, and nuts, and a whole list of stuff. And that makes that an emotional connection with people that I think we've failed to do in the broader climate community around why people should care about this. 2 degrees warming, coal, I got 2 kids and 2 jobs, and I got time for that shit. Can I swear? Maybe I should keep it clean. Should I keep it clean?
You may drop all the curse words. Go for it.
Okay. Once a chef, always a chef, I guess. And so the book, over time, I've done a lot of these dinners. And so the book is really an attempt to raise some awareness about where we sit.
Mm-hmm.
But the path of all the things that are bad in the food system has been well beaten. And what hasn't been there is all right, if we're serious about really changing how we eat, what is it that we would have to do? And not in a detailed prescriptive policy, although there's some, important levers to pull, but what does change really look like in a pragmatic way? Not in the utopic ideals, we want everybody with chickens on their, and living this life that is
sanctimonious, moral high ground people get on.
I hate that shit so intensely. We're dealing. It just has no base in reality. A lot of the ideals I embody and I believe in, and when I find a farm that is actually doing it on a small level, I support. My farm just down the way is one of my favorite places on earth that I support, and the chickens live a better life than I do, and it's also that chicken costs $40, which is okay. I can do that, but most people just simply can't. So it's an attempt to take a real look at that. And I think the thing that people most overlook in change, and I learned this in the White House after spending 6 years trying to push all the policy levers that I could, was that policy has an important role to play, but it's very limited in its ability to solve what we eat. And we've been given a very neat narrative that basically evil business colludes with corrupt government and dictates everything that's on our plates. Mm-hmm. I wish it was so. I wish that were true.
Yeah,
because that's solvable. You have to fight, and you're going to lose some battles. And I, won some battles and lost some battles when I was fighting that fight in DC. But it is so much more complicated than that. And ultimately, what ends up on our plates is mostly a reflection of our culture and what we care about and what we value. Now, it's not to say that businesses don't influence our culture in, deplorable ways, and there's bad policy, which does, impact certain elements of our system. But until we care as a society about what we eat, until we care about the nourishment of it, until we care about its impact on the environment and on future generations' ability to feed themselves, politicians, and that then translates into voting on these issues. Politicians are not going to spend political capital on things that voters aren't telling them they really care about. And businesses are not going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in changing their supply chains and doing everything they need to do if people aren't deciding, I'm going to spend my dollars for companies that are doing it, and I'm not going to spend my dollars on companies that are not. And those elements of change are fundamentally rooted in our culture. And yes, changing culture is the slow, hard, painstaking, mind-numbing work. Yes. That is hard to track, is hard to get credit for, is hard to, definitely doesn't happen very fast, but is the underpinnings of change. It is the soil of which change will grow from. And so, that's the premise of the book.
And your premise in the book, from how I read it, with that cultural piece, is the traditional media, the chefs that have high visibility, what they're choosing to put in their restaurants then trickles down, has this trickle down effect of like what's trending in the food space. So my argument is, I think that creators are doing that. For sure. I'm curious about your thought on how you would fit creators into that if you were to, write that.
Yeah, I'm going to call my editor and we're like, we have to reprint this book. I messed up. Listen, I think culture, just to step back for a second before I get to creators, culture is shaped every day. Mm-hmm. It's shaped in chief marketing officers' offices. It's shaped with what celebrities decide they want to do or not do. But you know how else it's shaped? It's shaped by grandma. It's shaped by, the 6-year-old friend of the friend. It's shaped by a parent who decides they're going to change, the culture of how they're eating in their own home. It's shaped by people big and small. And honestly, the person who changed me who really, the first real health decision shift I ever made was I was a baseball player growing up, and my boy Nick Walker got drafted. He was a couple years older than me, and I looked up to him. And we were out late one night, and we went to the gas station like we always did, and I bought a Mountain Dew. And I got back in the car, and he was like, "Why are you drinking that shit?" And I was like, "What?" He was like, "That's poison for your body. Look at the label." And I looked at the label, and I have not had a soda since. And he that was a cultural shift. He's like, "You are an athlete. You shouldn't be drinking this kind of thing. Nobody should be drinking it." And it made it taboo. It made it oof, okay, you're not cool. If you drink this, you're not cool. And so that's to say that I think culture is created in all kinds of moments. And in a modern time, what is more important in creating culture than creators? It was not if I didn't explicitly say it was not an intentional mention, only because I think our culture is a fabric of so many threads.
Absolutely.
But in this context, yeah, I mean, it is where people get, the cues on what they should or shouldn't be doing. And so, yeah, I can't think of a community that has a bigger role to play.
Yeah. And I think of too, just the role of I don't know if you're familiar with Ballerina Farm, a highly polarizing, controversial topic, but essentially, right, she started this farm using an immense amount of privilege that she had to be able to do that, and has created these offline ecosystems in this agritourism boom. And so on the one hand, I think we can be super hypercritical of that and saying, is performative versus authentic, because I think that is the tension that I see in a lot of this of how can food creators be authentically making a change, because there is that tension of this is performative to some degree, and what's a trustworthy source to learn about these things from the creator lens.
I don't know I don't know the details of that story, so I'm not gonna weigh in on that particular example. But I look, I mean, finding authentic sources or at least trustworthy sources, which are not the same, by the way. Just because somebody is who they are does not mean you should be listening to them.
Right.
There's a lot of very prominent examples of that right now. And you guys know my politics. So
they're similar to yours.
Yes.
Really.
So, but there may be some people who don't share my politics who are listening, and that's fine. So, but I think we need people who are knowledgeable, most importantly, and whose values are in the right place and care about the right things. How that gets expressed, I'm less concerned about, as long as those fundamental like facts, are not manipulated. We're not living in a conspiracy theory ecosystem where you can trust nothing and everybody's trying to kill you, because that's just not true. Unfortunately, that's just not true. But unfortunately, it's gripping the minds of more and more people. And the problem with the algorithms, the more extreme shit you say, the more the more you get seen. And that's a very dangerous dynamic that is at play, and we should all be careful of. But if somebody is coming with valuable information and they care about like the well-being of their community and other communities and future generations and the planet that sustains life on Earth, that's really, I don't care if you start some utopic beautiful thing and show somebody like what ideally it could look like, or you're doing it down and dirty and just making something better. I think we need to be a little more gracious and accepting of different people's different approaches to manifesting like those core beliefs.
So my local CSA is Rob Mutu at Mutu Orchards. And I just went to pick up my CSA today and was talking to them. I'm like, hey, I get a chat with Sam Kass. I would love to hear just your perspective as a farmer. Like, what questions should I, as a consumer of their farm and whatever we want to call that, and also having a platform to talk about it, like, what are the things you're caring about right now that we can then take to like our creator community here to help them care about, to be speaking about from a place of authority and things that are factually correct. And I thought it was really interesting. I would love to just get your perspective on this. Rob was talking about like organic control policy. We don't need to get into that. That feels like a very heavy conversation for another day. But he was talking about like the future generation of farmers and like, what are we doing to support and educate them and like get them excited about farming? And then that goes into the conversation about access to farmland too. He used the example of one of their farmers, Erin. He said he came to the farm to farm with us because she's a young farmer that cares about this, but she doesn't have access to land. I'm in the DC area, so prices are crushing, land values are crushing right now. Data center development and just development is obliterating farmland. So like, thoughts. That's a lot. Thought.
Yeah, let me just be very clear. I'm not touching organic policy with a 100-foot pole ever, no matter how many times you do that. Okay. I think this is one of the greatest crises that we face, and there's a lot of problems that are underpinning the risk around a transition or lack thereof this generation of farmers to the next. And this is starting to happen at a particularly dire time where the rural economy is in tatters. It's been a series of disasters. Ukraine was a disaster for growers. Tariffs have been a disaster for growers. This war in Iran has been a disaster for growers, rising energy costs and fertilizer costs. And so you have a real economic crisis. And, many farms in America have been underwater for years now. And so part of the problem is the economics of agriculture are broken. Like, if you're a small specialty grower in the right region, you may be all right now. But climate's putting all that under threat. So you got an orchard right now in a place that it's been for a long time, you're carrying a lot of risk. And every year that goes by, you're carrying more risk. Because trees don't walk very well. And the climate is moving meaningfully in a way that the areas that have produced certain crops for a long, long time are no longer going to be suited. But you have a lot of volatility and disruption coming, and it's going to put more and more economic pressure on the model. And so we're going to ask young people to try to fight through all the challenges of getting access to credit and getting access to land when the economic structure seems to be getting worse and worse. And many farms are just not profitable. And so you're going to see what's left is just more and more consolidation. And that is a disaster for the stability and resiliency of our system. Like right now, we rely on so few. 75% of what we consume is 12 plants and 5 animals, and even the diversity within those plants and animals has been largely stripped away. So we basically have all of our eggs in one basket, and we don't have the diversity of growers farming in all kinds of different ways and all kinds of different crops that will be needed as we enter an increasingly volatile future because of climate. So I can't think of too many issues that are more pressing for the future of the country, for stability, for planetary health, for human health. But it's hard to so there's the cohort of the woman you described who wants to do it and can't figure out how to get in. So that's a huge problem. I think in the end, we're facing just most people don't want to do this anymore because it's not really that rational of a decision. Like, you can't blame somebody who says, I just want to make sure I can feed my family and not, have be okay for a year or two and then have 3 years where I think I'm going to go bankrupt. And so I think we have a lot of work to do to fix the economics of agriculture and to incentivize and provide the supports needed and the financing needed for the next generation to get in. But it is a daunting challenge right now. And we don't have a lot of time because we're going to see the biggest transfer of land that we've seen in generations coming up over the next 10 years. So it's a real challenge.
So to wrap this up in a pretty little bow, creators have, as much as we can, because this is complicated and nuanced, as are all things. Creators, our food creators in the tastemaker community, I would say, have a substantial platform. Their people trust them. They build the culture from their families and their culture and are really trying to connect. I think that's what's beautiful about food creators specifically, is about the people and the traditions and the food. And we all love sharing that as a fundamental, human need and desire. So what is one thing that creators with a platform and a voice can be doing to help this cause? If you could pick one thing, and I know that feels like an impossible question, but I'm just curious what comes to mind.
I see you over there asking questions are impossible. That's a tough one. I think it's a great question. I resist the one thing. I think taking the time to understand the implications of whatever it is that we are serving, so as a chef, I would do this. Chef as a creator, it's what you're putting out there, I think is our responsibility to do, and to showcase and bring the love and connection that comes with the foods that are going to ensure that our kids and grandkids will also be able to enjoy the delicious lives that we've been able to have, I think is what's most important. So for me, making sure that, and it sometimes it can be overtly what you say, or it can just be the delicious plate you make. Whether your audience is here for the hard hitting, let me tell you about the carbon implications of this system versus that, and the chemical runoff and the fertilizer issue, whatever it is, all on that side, or just loves great food. I think those of us who have an audience have a responsibility to understand, okay, I'm influencing what somebody's going to eat, and that's a responsibility that we all have to take seriously. It doesn't mean we have to be dogmatic about it, but our food system is both, one of the great drivers of the challenges we face. It's definitely on the front lines of the challenges that we face, but it's also the only real solution that I see that we have. And so trying to put together menus or highlight foods that are less detrimental to the planet, and trying to make, a diverse array of, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, the star, and as a, animal protein eater and lover, showing a different role for animal protein in our diet. Just showing that, it can be there, but it shouldn't be the center of the plate, or 4/5 of the plate. That that we need to rebalance kind of what a diet looks like when we take into account both our health and the planet's health. And so just being conscious of that is the thing I would encourage everybody to always think through. And it's fine also to say, today I'm not doing that. We're going to have a big ass steak, but know what that steak is. Because when you do the math on and I do a dinner called the Fork in the Road. And so half the room gets a giant steak and some potatoes and green beans. The other half gets a really diverse, it can be anything, but, grains, legumes, plants, and some animal protein, but a much smaller portion. The water And carbon implications from just a room of like 20 people is insane. And so it really adds up, forget about a whole city, And so these choices matter. And just, I think, making sure that we are taking that, internalizing that what we're putting out there will have an impact on both our lives and the future generations.
Lovely. And I love how you said that in the book too. And I'm laughing because when I first started listening to The Last Supper, I was on an airplane coming back from some sort of work event, like gnawing on beef jerky as you were like, beef's the problem. And I'm like, carbon emissions, beef. I was like, ugh! No, but I do like how you frame it as doesn't need to be like this grand overhaul, just our simple decisions and knowing why we're making them and understanding the implications is a really great place to start. And I think our creators can also just take little steps to integrate that, using their influence for good. So
totally.
I have a rapid fire wrap up question since we're running out of time here.
Yes, go for it.
All right. So if you're at one of your supper clubs, but we're with our creators, we're at a table of 20 creators, what dish are you hoping that shows up on the table?
What dish am I hoping that shows up? What's the weather?
Ooh, okay. We're having it next month. It's the height of July.
Height of July.
What do we?
I definitely will need some early season tomatoes. I guess down there you'd probably already be fully in tomato season.
Mm-hmm.
What dish? You can't ask me these kind of questions.
What are you bringing, Sam? You have one dish.
What am I bringing?
How about that's an easier question? What are you bringing
to
supper?
That is not an easier question.
Okay.
So it's hot.
It's hot. It's July. You're with creators. They're going to be posting this. They're going to be talking about the impacts of the food system. What are you bringing?
Some twist on. Well, this comes to mind because I've been craving it recently. But there's a little shop down the way that makes the best. Weirdly, and I've been all over Italy, like the best fresh pulled mozzarella that I've ever had. And so then I do a bunch of tomatoes, but I'd probably, add some other, maybe some pickled green beans and I don't know, an anchovy dressing. Something like that. I don't know.
I'm coming to the dinner.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, last question for you. So we're going to play Fuck, Marry, Kill. Or alternatively, save one, ration one, lose one forever.
Fuck, marry, kill? Okay. You said it, not me. Okay, keep going.
Chocolate, coffee, wine.
That's so unfair.
I know. So which one are you saving? Which one are you rationing? And which one are you saying goodbye
I think fuck, marry, kill is better, but fucking coffee, marrying wine, killing chocolate.
Okay, that's fair. You're killing chocolate?
Not even a question between those two. My only debate was which one am I marrying?
Can you just be a throuple situation?
I can't live with it. I'm fine with that. I mean, I like good chocolate, but I'm fine with that. I can't live without wine.
Okay, between those two though, the would you rather?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. My kids sometimes ask me that just to mess with me because it's like torturous.
Yeah.
I'd rather either way. I'm good. I can just leave the planet if I don't have.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Well, Sam, thank you for joining us. And I do want to highlight that congratulations on being the recipient of the Julia Child Award recently. We heard that.
You.
One of our advisory board members is on the voting committee, the James Beard Foundation. So we were talking about that, and it was just a really cool timing coincidence to be able to talk to you about that. And then you are releasing How to Live on Earth. That's coming up at the end of the month.
It's coming, yeah. It actually premieres in London on the 22nd. So coming up in a few days.
Well, we're so excited to watch it, to keep up with what you're doing. Where can all of our people find you and follow along with your work?
Instagram is probably the thing I keep up to most, although, I'm told all the kids are on TikTok, but my handle there is Sam Kass DC.
Awesome. Thanks again, Sam, for the combo. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to Tastemaker Talk. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by leaving a review, giving us a rating, or sharing it with your creator friends. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You can find more from us on our website, tastemakerconference.com, or even join us for an event where we learn and grow as a community of creatives. The conversation doesn't stop here. Talk soon.